Okay, I'm back. Now, I want to show you something about this RAM we bought here. In the previous segment, I told you we bought 16 gigabytes of RAM. Well, this is what the stick looks like before it's installed, and that's it right there, installed. Now, what makes this RAM so special? Well, each stick is 8 gigabytes in size. So when I get ready to put this stick in, I'm going to put it in this black slot right here, because this other stick is installed in the black slot. If we had 32 gigs in here, which is what this motherboard will handle, then these sticks would have been 16 gigabytes in size, and every one of these slots would have been populated with a memory stick. But since we're not maxing this out, and the owner of this new computer could do that if he wishes in the future, and he may want to consider that because he has told me that he's already involved in photo editing, but he wants to get involved in movie stuff, so he may want to consider upgrading this to the full maximum 32 gigs, which would cost him about another $140 in shipping and handling and taxes. So we went this route because, trust me, I do a lot of video, as you can see here, and photography, and my machine that I do it on has 8 gigabytes of RAM, but I have to tell you, it does bog down on me. It does use up the RAM. I have to monitor how I'm editing my movies and things, because once it starts getting near the end of the RAM cache and the RAM itself, then it'll slow down and eventually just come to a stop. Then I have to save what I'm doing if I'm able to, shut my computer down completely, wait about 30 seconds to a minute, and reboot, and by that time all my resources have cleared out. And while I'm waiting on all that, the anxiety sets in, wondering if I'm going to have to do all that work I just did over again, because the system did freeze up on me, or if it did save, or whatever the situation was. So when you're going to do video or you're going to do photo editing, you need lots of RAM. Lots and lots of RAM, and my goal is to build myself a computer like this for the Buckeyenest business, and then eventually set up a website server and be able to host websites for you folks at that low price I charge, $125 for a 5-page site. So, all right, so let's get back to the memory install. This memory was made by Corsair. Okay, now you see these funny little aluminum grooves and things along the top of it. This is the actual RAM right here, and it's hidden inside this aluminum cooling cover. They've gotten really smart making this RAM, and they've put cooling fins on the RAM. So when the fans are blowing the air around on the inside of the system, the fins, this cooling fin setup is cooling the RAM too, which keeps it cooler, which does what? I've already said it. Speeds up and improves the performance of your computer. So I'm going to put this piece of RAM in here, and I hope you can see what I'm doing, because I'm a one-man crew and I don't have anybody to run this camera here. So let me see if I can get up just a little closer. Alright, remember I told you I'm going to put this in this other black slot here. So I'm going to close down that tab and that tab on the blue slot. You can't make a mistake putting this in, because if you look real close, on the it's better illustrated on the blue, this section of where we're going to put the RAM is shorter than this section. If you look on the RAM, this section here is shorter than this section. So if you just line up the short sections and the long sections and push down, these tabs in here will click in automatically, and if you listen real hard, you might hear them. So here we go. Stick that piece in there, line that piece up in there. I can feel it because I've been doing it for years. It's in alignment. So I'm going to kind of hold on to the case back here, and I'm going to push. Did you hear that click? That means the top piece of this RAM clicked into place. Now I'm going to push down here. Did you hear that click? That means the bottom piece of that RAM's in place. So now we have installed 16 gigabytes of RAM in this computer. But in this case, we bought Crossfire technology for dual cards. Now this is the card, and that you can see it fills up the whole screen there. It's going to go in this motherboard here in just a minute, along with its partner that's just like it. And then I'm going to take this little item here, it's called a bridge, and I'm going to put it on these cards, and I'm going to bridge those cards together. So what's happening? The processor in there, underneath the cooling fan here, is doing all the basic work, but it's not doing any video work. So these graphic cards that I'm installing here have their own processors, have their own fans in them, and they operate under a different power system, and they do all the video work. Now, look at these connectors on these cards. These are called DVI connectors, and that's a SPIF connector. Okay. He could put two monitors on this video card if he wanted to, on this connector and this connector. They could be VGA with adapters, or they could be DVI, strictly DVI monitors, and they don't need an adapter. They just plug right into those connectors. Those are DVI connectors. So, given that information, I'm going to shut down here a minute. I'm going to install these video cards in this system for you, so you can see. And I'm going to put them, one of them, see if I can zoom in here and get a better picture for you. There it is. Yeah, you can see that just a little better. One of them's going to go right in here where this tab is at, in this slot, which is blocked. Your view's blocked by these pipes here. The other one is going to go in this black slot down here, and then, as I said, I'm going to put the jumper on them and set them up for Crossfire technology. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay folks, I'm back and it's update time. Let's recap. I've already installed the cooling system. This is a liquid cooling system mounted to the back of the case. I've plugged in all the fans. I've already installed the RAM back here. We bought 16 gigabytes of RAM. My client still has 2 open slots. This motherboard will handle up to 32, so if he decides he wants to add more RAM to it in the future, he can do that, up to another 16 gigs. Now he's going to start doing video editing and things of that nature, and he already does photo editing. So it depends on his preference. He may want to add that RAM, and he may not. Now, as I told you, this is a 4.0 gigahertz processor, 8-core processor, and it's going to run super fast. This is a gaming rig, so to speak, but it also handles 2 video cards. I told you in the last segment I'm going to install those. Well, that's these cards right here. They're already plugged in, and I set up the bridge on them. So when I install the power source, I'm going to need to plug connectors into the backs of these cards so they'll run properly. And another connector up here in this upper left corner for a 12-volt power supply to the motherboard itself. So I'll be back in a few more minutes, and I still got to add this other case fan. Alright, I'm back with a note to self. I'm getting really impressed with this company, Ultra. First off, this is their one of their prize-winning cases, and this is a power source from them. It's a 750 watt, but they build these cases and these sources, these other hardware, to run super quiet. And here's something I noticed. They sent us a rubber grommet, you might want to call it, that fits on this power source, and the holes all lined up perfect. Alright, then you take that, and down here in the bottom of the case they've rubberized this connection. Let me get down here so you can see it on each side, and that reduces vibration and noise. So you take that and you put this grommet on there, which, by the way, guys, are you in Florida or something? Because you had a hanging chad there I had to remove. Just a joke, just kidding. You put that power source in here, in this case, and if you were paying attention, you didn't hear anything. You didn't hear me bumping metal, you didn't hear me scraping aluminum, you didn't hear me putting marks on this or anything else. And I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to show you this. This is the alignment of it. Oh, I got it in there sideways, I think. Hold on a minute. Or upside down, maybe. No. Let me turn it back around this way. Okay, I see what I was doing. We're doing it this way. Okay folks, I'm back, and I was talking about this power supply unit here that I bought with this case. It's a 750 watt and all the extra neat things they did to it to make it soundproof and keep the vibration down to 0 so it's not affecting the operation of the other system. But one of the other neat things I just noticed, they even gave you the option to use aesthetically pleasing connections for it. These are thumb screws, and you put those on the mount the power source with the thumb screws. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back in a minute or two. Okay, we're back. I got those thumb screws in place. That power source is mounted in there, and if you can see here, no leftover screws. They're all in there nice and tight. Now what makes another neat thing about this power source is it's called a modular source. And what they do is they've actually created plugs in the back of it here. You can see them there maybe a little better now. And I've got them over here in a box, and you only have to plug in what you're going to use. You only need to plug in what you're going to use. So I'm going to need to get plugs out for the power sources on these. I'm going to need to get the main plug out for the power source here in the case, and I'm going to need to find that connector for this 12 volt connector up here I was telling you about earlier, up here in the top corner here. So I'll be back in a minute or two here after I dig all those up. Okay folks, this is Rex and I'm back. You can see we got the keyboard and the mouse plugged in back here. I got the video cable plugged in. I got the power source plugged into this power source. And as they say in the sports industry, this is the moment of glory or the agony of defeat. And right now my feet smell pretty defeated, but I shall overcome. So, given that, that's the monitor I've got hooked up to it. I'm going to reach up here and push this button. And if everything goes right, you're going to see video on that monitor. Now you're not going to see a complete boot because I don't have any hard drives mounted. I don't have any DVD burners mounted. I don't have the operating system installed. I have nothing on here but the very basic boot. So if we don't see water starting to squirt out of these things here, and you don't see smoke coming off the motherboard, and you see video on that monitor, that means I get to retain my title as genius. Here goes nothing. We have lights. We don't have water. We don't have smoke. We have graphics. All right, we're in good shape here. That means I got to install the hard drive. Now we bought a 256 gigabyte SSD drive, and for what my client Larry wants to do with this, that'll be a very good boot up drive. Then we got a 2 terabyte internal drive for storage internally, and then we got a 5 terabyte external drive. Got a webcam to put in here yet. And we bought a Blu-ray burner, so it'll burn Blu-rays, it'll burn DVDs, it'll burn CDs. And what else did we get for it down here? Oh, we got Windows 7 for the operating system. That's the Blu-ray burner. Told you about the webcam. Told you about the external hard drive. Alright, at this moment, I can still claim the title as genius. I'm going to shut it down, turn the camera off, and put the rest of this stuff in there, install that case fan that I've got sitting over here amongst all this clutter. You can see when you start building computers, they send you all kinds of extra stuff just in case you run across the different configurations. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do with all this extra stuff, pick it up, clean it up. Then I'm going to start installing the Blu-ray burner and the primary hard drive and the secondary drive and the external drive and the webcam. And the next time I kick on here, I'll point all that stuff out to you, and I'll have the machine pretty much closed up, and I'll be ready to start the operating system install. So give me a few minutes and I'll be back. Okay folks, I'm back. Got a note to self. Got to remember to invade China. I'm a little unhappy with those people right now. This is a Blu-ray burner. They didn't send me any cables for these connections, for this connection. They just sent the Blu-ray, which makes me wonder now if it's going to work at all. Luckily for them, I've got extra cables. But way back in the day when I was in the Army and in the Tank Corps, my buddies and I decided we were going to invade China. We just didn't figure out how to get our tanks in there. 1973, I think it was. But now maybe I ought to call these guys and we ought to rethink that process and go get my damn cable back from them. Alright, I'll be back in a few minutes. Note to self. When I invade China for my cable, see, this is the cable they were supposed to send me. Right here. Also get some money out of them for the damn mounting screws. They didn't even put any mounting screws in this package. Luckily for them, did I say that once before? Yeah. Luckily for them, I got mounting screws too. Alright, Frenchie, Bray, Ricky, those are all my buddies back in my Army days. We got to get together and talk about this thing we were discussing back in '73 in the barracks that night, if you guys remember. Okay folks, I'm back. Almost done. Keyword is almost. Now we got to set up the software in this thing. And the first thing you need to do is you install your chipset drivers or your motherboard drivers. It makes the motherboard work right. So you can recognize if you've got a internet connection or your video cards are set up right, etc., etc. So, given that, we're going to boot up here. And I'm going to take this disc and I'm going to put it in that Blu-ray burner right there. See, I told you I was going to get that thing mounted. Well, there it is. There's the cables coming out of the back of it, all plugged in. Here's the SSD drive, the 256 gigabyte SSD drive. That's where we're going to install the operating system, Windows 7 Home Premium. Here's that 2 terabyte internal backup drive I was telling you about, except I got the cabling for it running through the other side of the machine. Trying to clear up some of this clutter here. So we're going to boot the button up, push the button up here and see if all this stuff is going to work again. Oh, I guess I got demoted back to dumbass because you know what I didn't do? I didn't plug the power cable in. All right, let's plug the power cable in. Now there's a little green light on the motherboard way down here that you guys can't see, but I see it, so that means there is light. So let's do this. Let's shift this over just a little bit. I still got to install some fans, and my fan controller for this came in today. That's really cool, huh? USB 3.0, it holds 5 different fans, got headphone jack there, microphone jack. I still got to install that and set up these fans in here, but we're going to push this button now. We have light. You know what's really cool? See that white light there in the middle? That says Corsair. That's that power source that's flowing there, and if you hold these pipes, you can feel the liquid flowing through them. So, all right, now I got just what I wanted to get. It says reboot and select the proper boot device. So we're going to do this. We're going to turn that off, and then we're going to take and we're going to unplug this 2 terabyte internal drive, because that way when it boots up, it's not going to ask me for the proper boot device, because it's only going to find one, and that's this 256 gigabyte solid state drive that I was pointing out to you right there. So let's reboot again. And we're going to get that screen there. We should get that screen there again. Reboot the proper boot device. So we're going to take out this Windows 7 disk here. Now I'll give you some more insight here. That's your product code label right there, so when you're opening this thing up, be careful you don't tear it up, because if you can't read it, it don't work. And they're going to charge you another anywhere from $79 up to $139, depending on what you buy, just to replace that little number. So, given all that, now let's push the button on the blue drive. All right, that works. We're going to put that disc in there. We're going to close that Blu-ray drive down. Then we're going to reboot the machine. Now I'm going to teach y'all a little technician's trick. You take your keyboard here. This is called a cold reboot. That control key, the control key, the alt key, and the delete key will do a reboot for you. Let's see if I can get all my fingers in there. There's the delete key. All right, now you have to push that down several times really fast. There it goes. Now the system's rebooting. Theoretically, we should get it has recognized, and it didn't. Well, let's do it again. And we're going to go into setup. And for some reason it didn't recognize my and that's because dummy Me again, dummy me again. Remember I told you we're going to have to go do a midnight raid on China because they didn't send me the proper cables and they didn't send me my screws. Well, I didn't plug this cable in there because I just realized I needed the one that I dug out earlier for that external hard drive there. So we're going to do this. We're going to shut this down. Then I'm going to plug a power source into my Blu-ray burner. Alright, that's in there. Let's go down here and look down here for a source for this. We found one. Alright, that's plugged in. Now, this is your first window you'll get on Windows 7, whether it be Home Premium or Professional or Ultimate, whatever it be, and it's asking you pretty basic things. The language you want to use in it, where, time and currency format, United States, and keyboard and input methods, US. You want to use the US thing. So you're going to click on that and you're given this option to install now, which I'm going to click on because I know about all this stuff down here, and we're going to start the install process. Now after we get this done, remember that disk that chipset I was telling you about earlier in the movie? You got to install the chipset drivers. Well, I'm going to do that the very next thing, because up there on the wall is where I've got my internet cable strung to plug into this thing when I get ready to hook up the internet and do the patches and updates. So let's go on here. I'm going to accept this license and terms, and I'm going to click next. I want to do a custom configuration, and I'm going to look in here and see the drive options. I'm going to call it new. This is a 256 gigabyte hard drive, but they reserve certain pieces of it for data storage and things of this nature, so I'm just going to click on apply. I'm going to click on OK, and it's setting up that hard drive. So this partition here is what it's going to use right now while it's installing the operating system. This is the permanent partition, and this one will go away here pretty soon after we're done here. This is your main hard drive. There's 238 gigabytes of that drive left. We got plenty of room, because right now we're only going to install Microsoft Windows on this. So I'm going to click next, and now it's going to sit here and go through its setup process. And I'm going to turn the computer off, or turn the camera off, because I don't want to bore you with all this.